Hi everyone. Welcome to this Highway Tabernacle Tech Team training on ProPresenter. In this video we're going to discuss layers. Now, layers in ProPresenter are the foundation of how information is presented to a screen. Anytime you send information to a screen, it's sent on a specific layer. And there is an order to the layers. So certain layers will cover other layers. So let's head over to ProPresenter and take a look. So let me change my camera so that I'm at the bottom. There we go. And the layers we're going to discuss today are over here on the right side. Okay, these are the layers that ProPresenter provides us. And we start with this video input layer down here at the bottom. Okay, so just as a general understanding of what layers are, let me come down here and just click on this slide right here. So this is a timer slide. And you can see over here, it's got motion graphics in the background, and it's got this timer counting down. Now, if I clear the media layer is this motion graphics, and that gets added to a slide by dragging and dropping. Okay, so let's just do that so you understand how the media layer or how these various layers get created. So I'm going to create a brand new slide. So to do that, I will come over here underneath this. In this countdown section, there's a plus sign here. So I'm going to click here, Add Slide, and select Add New Blank Slide. And that'll give me a blank slide. And then in my media, and remember this media section is displayed by clicking on the media button up here at the top. So if this is not shown, click on media and then make sure you have this ProPresenter Training Start folder selected so that you have your media here. And then I'm just going to grab, I'll just grab a slide. I'll grab this one and drag it up here and drop it. And that's how media is added to a slide. So that will be the media layer. So if I select this slide, I can see, well, let me clear first and reselect the slide, and I can see that the media is showing, and it's a motion graphics because you can see it's actually playing and there are these bubbles or something that's moving, okay, in this graphic. So that's the media layer. Now below that we have the video input layer. So let me show you how to add a video input into ProPresenter. So a camera, for example. Now I only have one camera, so I'm going to close the camera on the video stream so that I can bring it into ProPresenter. Okay, so let me get rid of my camera. And now in ProPresenter, I can come up here to the ProPresenter menu, select Settings. And then you'll get this dialog. We want to come down here to Inputs. So we're going to select Inputs, and that brings us here. Okay, so one of the new things about ProPresenter, by the way, now that we're in here, is this Aircast. Aircast, I haven't seen it, but from what I understand, Aircast will allow us to cast a tablet or a phone to ProPresenter. So, you know, one of the pastors could be on stage with a tablet, and if he wants to show that information on a screen, theoretically, he could cast that information into ProPresenter, and then we can show it on a screen. I'll create a future video on Aircast, and once I've figured out how it all works. Okay, but we're looking at the add video input here. So we want to add a camera. So let's click the plus sign to add a camera. And you can see it says no video source because that's what's selected down here under device. So let's give this a name. I'll call this my webcam. And down here I need to select my camera. Well, this is my camera, this Logitech webcam. So I'm going to select the 720p30 on my webcam. And when I do that, it should bring up my camera, and there it is. Okay, so now we have the camera input created for ProPresenter. Now we need to bring it in to our presentation so that we can use it. So to do that, and by the way, I did click on this line right here. It just brings up the name of your webcam next to input 1. And we want that so that when we go to select it, we'll know which one we're selecting. Okay, so I'm going to close this. Now, for some reason, the way that you add that input into a ProPresenter presentation is through this media section. So make sure the media section is shown. Down here, we're going to see video inputs under playlists. So we'll select video inputs, and then we can add a video input, which is what this is up here in this layer. Okay, so we'll click plus, and there's the camera that I added. So now we have this camera. We could drag and drop the camera onto a slide. Okay, and now you see that there's this camera here. And to show the camera, really, all you need to do is click on it. And, it didn't show up here. Why isn't the video camera showing? I can see down here that it's red, but it's not showing. Well, the reason for that is because the media layer, which was something that we dragged earlier, right? Dropped it onto this slide. This layer is hiding the video input layer. It's on top of it. So even though the camera is selected, I'm not seeing it because the media layer is on top. And this is an important concept to understand because ProPresenter will use every layer that's currently being shown. It will try to show it even though it's covered. Okay, so to make sure that ProPresenter works as well as it possibly can, we want to make sure that we're not showing layers that are hidden. Okay, unless we plan to go back to those layers at some point. Let me explain. So here's this media layer being shown. If I clear the media layer, then we will see my camera. Okay, we'll see that video input. So it is actually being run, it is running. ProPresenter is using it, but it's just not being shown because the media layer is covering it. Okay. All right, so to get rid of the media layer, I can see I've added the camera here. So when I click on this, it's going to show. That doesn't make a lot of sense to me because it's hidden. So we're going to remove that video input here. So I'm going to go to Add Action. Sorry, I'm going to go to Remove Actions, and there is the Input 1 webcam. So I'll click on that, and it removes it from the slide. You'll see that the icon is now gone. Okay, so if I clear this and then I go back to my media, that video input is no longer showing. Okay, so it's important when you're setting up your slides that you are aware of what layers are currently being shown. Okay, so that's video input. And the next one up is the media layer, and we talked about that. The media layer is created by dragging from your media slides up onto a slide. Okay, you can also, by the way, drag from your file system. So you could grab a video file or an image and drop it here, and it would create a new slide with that image. Okay, so that's how you would add new slides. So that's the media layer. Now what about the slide layer? Let me get my camera back in here. And actually, before I add the camera, let me delete the camera that I created. So I'm going to come down here to Video Inputs, right-click on this webcam, and delete. And it's telling me we're only deleting the cue. We're not actually deleting the input. So we'll delete that cue. And a cue allows you to drag it onto a slide. So that means we also need to come up here into our settings, back to our inputs, and delete this camera. So now we don't have the video input anymore. Okay, so I'll bring my camera back on. There we are. Okay, so let's remove this media area down here by clicking on the media button up here at the top. All right, so we talked about the video input, we talked about the media layer, and now we're going to talk about the slide layer. So let me go to my timer. Well, my timer has, I can see it has a media layer and a slide layer. And if I clear the media layer, this slide layer still is visible. Okay, so the way the slide layer is created is by editing the slide. So let me show you. I'm going to reselect this slide. If I right-click on this slide and select Edit Slide, I will go to my editor. Okay, I can also get to the slide editor just by clicking on the slide button up here at the top. All right, but we will click Edit Slide, and now I'm in my slide layer, and I can see that it's showing this media, but the media is not selectable. Right? If you look down here under Objects, the only object down here is this timer. And if I select it, you can see here this timer is selected. Okay? So in ProPresenter 18, or ProPresenter 7 version 18, I guess, they've changed the way that objects get added to the slide. There used to be a circle with a plus sign, and you would click that and then select whatever you want. Now they have this toolbar. All right, so the T is for text. You can see it says Insert Text Object. So if I click on this, it's going to add a text object, and it's hard to see because of the countdown. In fact, let me move the countdown out of the way. So here's this text object that it added, and you can see down here under Objects we have text. Okay. Now the order of the objects makes a difference. So currently text is on top of timer. So you saw this. If I move this down here, you can see text kind of on top of the timer. But if I change the order and move the text below the timer, now you can no longer see that text. Even though it's on there, it's hidden because the timer is on top of it. Okay. So I'm just going to select this text layer and delete it. So that's how you would add text. The next one is shapes. So you can see all the shapes that you could create. So if I wanted an ellipse, a circle, for example, I can bring this in, and I can drag and drop and make this oblong. But if instead I want to, I thought I got rid of that. I want to just make it a circle. I can hold the Shift key down while I drag and drop, or while I drag it. And what that will do is it will maintain that circle shape if you hold the Shift key down. Okay, so I can't make it oblong. It's going to be a perfect circle. which is kind of handy. All right, so that's shapes. The next is a custom shape object. So if you wanted to create a custom shape, we could click this, and it tells you to click anywhere to start your path. So when you click and then drag to someplace else and click and drag and click and drag, you can make shapes a custom shape. Okay, so if you needed something like that, that's what this tool is for. The next one is media. So if you want to add a media object, a graphic, to the slide, you would click here. It would take you out to your file system, and then you can find your image and bring it in. The next one is the video input. So if you wanted to bring in a camera on top of a slide as part, and it would be actually part of the slide layer and not the camera layer if you bring in a camera object here. Okay? And the last one is web. So you could go to a website. If I click this, notice it creates this area here, and it's tied to whatever website you give it. So you could bring in a website into your slides to show that. Okay, I'm not sure if you can bring in YouTube and proprietary things like that. I'm not positive about that, but you can go to other websites, I guess. All right, so that's the web object, and it's called web down here. So I'm just going to delete that. So back up here to our timer, let's take a look at this. So when you drag an object, one of the nice things that ProPresenter does for us is it gives us alignment tools. So I can see this is exactly in the middle, top to bottom. If I go left and right, now I can see it's actually centered left to right and centered top to bottom. Okay. Now, with this selected, let's take a look at the shape tab up here. So the shape lets us align the shape and gives us the size and the XY. The XY are the top and bottom. Basically, it's this corner right here. So this corner is 560 pixels from the left and 340 pixels from the top is this corner. That's what that means. Okay. So if I wanted to put this in the upper corner, I would just go 0 and 0. And now it's in the upper left corner. Okay. So that's what the positions are for. Opacity lets you change how clear it is. So you can see right now the opacity, I can see a little bit. So if I make this smaller, it's almost invisible. Okay, so that's what opacity is. And then the fill color, or the fill, what do you want to fill this shape with? You can fill it with a color, and when you do, it'll let you pick the color that you want to put in the background there. That's kind of a bad one. Let's do that one. Okay, so that's what color fill is. You can also do a gradient. This is pretty cool. You can take a dark blue and have it go to whatever other color. So that's kind of nice. And then the angle that you give it will determine, see, I can change how it's graded, how the gradient goes. I can have it go right to left, left to right, that kind of thing. Okay. All right. We'll get to some of these other things later. Let's talk about, actually, let me, I do like the gradient, but all right. Anyway, let's talk about the text. So the text layer lets you change the font and the size. So the font is up here. I can change this to Cambria, for example, and it changes the font. Now, one thing that's really cool, okay, and this is a tip that I learned while watching a video, is that if you select the font and then click it again so that it's selected but it's not dropped down. If you use your up and down arrows, it will cycle through all the fonts so that you can find the exact font that you want. Okay, pretty cool. So the one that I like to use for a timer, let's see if I can find it, if it's up here, and it's not. It was called digital, and I don't see it in here, but let's go to impact. That's a pretty good timer. Okay, so anyway, that's the font, and you can change whether it's bold or not. You can change if it's underlined, if it's super, strike through. So strike through. We also have this gear icon over here. And the gear icon lets you change things like the background color, whether it's superscript or subscript. Did I say superscript? I think I did. Character spacing lets you change, obviously, the size between the characters so you can see it's changing. And we won't go through all these. You can play around. One thing that I do use on some of these is if I make this over here, let's make this as big as it'll get. If I were to bring this down here in the corner, that's pretty tight against the right side. So what you can do here is you can change the right margin. So if I increase the right margin, it's going to give me a little bit of space from the right, and same with the left. Okay, so that'll give you some space around the text so that it's not right up against the edge. Okay. All right. Let's make the background color. I'm going to go back here and just change this to a color, and I'm going to make the color black. So the color of the shape is black. And then I'll even make, and I'm doing this for a reason, okay? I'll even make the text color also black. So now you can't see it at all. What I want to show you is this stroke. So stroke will put an outline around the text for whatever color you want, okay? So, and you can make it wider. So that's kind of a nice effect. But that's what stroke does, is it puts an outline around each text so that you can see it. Now we use this with our countdown. Our countdown, if you remember, is white, the text. But whenever we have a rolling announcement that has white background, you can't see the countdown numbers at all. So we put a stroke around it, and I think the font is 3 or maybe 2, so that you can see the outline of the countdown, so that you can still see the countdown itself. Okay, so that's what stroke is. Let me go back here and I'll change this text color back to white. Okay, so another thing that you can do, let me change the shape color again back to a light gray, something like that, because I want to show you the drop shadow. So if I click shadow here, you can see if I turn it on, turn it off, it puts a nice shadow in there. I usually make the shadow a little bit bigger, and in this case the shadow is black and the opacity is half, 50%. Okay, so that's kind of nice. Put a drop shadow behind it. This particular text is linked, so it's linked to a specific countdown. Okay, we haven't talked about these countdowns. We did it just very briefly in the first video. But so this is linked to a specific countdown. So that means, let me show you. By the way, this show button, this is how you get back to your playlist and everything. Okay, so we're back here to our playlist. If you remember down here in countdowns, we have this particular one called segment countdown. And when I edited this slide, you can see that this is linked to that segment countdown. So you would select timer, which of the countdowns is it tied to, so that whenever that countdown starts, it will start the countdown on this slide. Okay, so that's how that works. They're linked together. And color triggers, we will talk about that when we get to our video on how I created our countdown. Okay, so one other thing that I want to mention here, in this case, we have a background here. If I made the background, let's go back up here to shape. Let's make the background transparent. So now there's no background. And instead of having the background on the text element itself, let's create a new background. Let's create a rounded rectangle. So I'll come up here, rounded rectangle, and now I have this rounded rectangle, and I'll bring it up here. And this is just for demonstration purposes here. Let's say we wanted it like that, okay? And then obviously the timer would go above it, like that. Now, there are times on a slide where you will have, the text will be empty, like if we have a blank slide, right? So if we have a blank slide, this text object would have no text in it at all, okay? But if I were to do this on this slide, let me just show you. So I'm going to come in here. This is not a very good example. I'm going to delete this timer one, add text. Okay, let's just say this is our text. Just as it is. I'll make it a little bit smaller so it fits on the slide. But so that's our text, right? If I go back here to show, you can't, it's showing this outline, but it's not showing any text. And that's because we didn't actually give it any text. I'll just say sample text. There we go. Now if I go back here to show and click on it again, it'll show that sample text. My point is this. There are times in the worship slides, for example, where we don't have, well, they don't have any here, where we don't have any lyrics. So it's a blank. Let's say that, you know, the band is just playing, but there's no lyrics. We have a blank slide. Well, when we have a blank slide, we don't want to see this blue background. So let me show you how we do that. So I'm going to go back up here to edit. The way that we do that is we set the visibility on this background. So make sure that the background is selected. And then here under shape, you'll find visibility. In here, we're only going to select one. So it doesn't matter whether you select all or any, but one of those needs to be selected. And then down here under choose type, you're going to select slide object, which is going to show one of these two, and then you want the sample text. So what you're saying here is on this shape object, the only time it's going to be visible is if the text object has text. If the text object does not have text, then it won't show. So let's prove that out. I'm going to duplicate this slide. So now I have two. And on this one, I'm going to delete the text. So I will just come back here and make it, there needs to be a text object, but it's going to say, it's going to have nothing in there, okay? So now let's go back to our show. So here's this one where you can see the sample text. Now if I click on this one, notice that it's completely hidden because there is no text. So because there is no text, this shape is set to not show when there is no text. So that's how you can still have a shape on a slide but not show it. Okay, that was a lot. So back here in our editor, we're not going to do much more. Let me just come back here and I'll delete that. We'll bring in our timer. So actually I can put that back on here. Let me show you one other thing that's really cool that I use a lot, and that's this scaling. Scaling lets you determine how the text will grow or shrink based on the area that you've got selected. Okay, it's a little hard to see, but I've got this container for my text right here. Okay, so that's how big the container is. So if I come in here and I say container up or down, notice when I select this, it's going to shrink the container to match the text. Okay, so I'll select that. Now the container is just as tall as the text. And if I were to add, let's say this is line 1 and line 2 and line 3, notice that the container increases in size as we go. Okay, so that's what container up or down. If I say none, let me grab my container again. There we go. And I'll move the container up here and bring it down here. Okay, so now it's big. If I say text up, that means the text is going to increase in size to fit the container. So check it out. Text up, now the text will shrink. It'll go in size to fit the container. Okay, so that's text up. If I do text down, that means that the text, let me change the font, the size here. Let's go 100. There's bigger. So text down means that if there's not enough space to fit the container, so let me come in here and add another line, it's going to make the text smaller. Okay, so you can see I added another line and the text will be smaller. This is something that we want because when if you think about the back screens, when the people on the stage are looking at the lyrics, the current slide lyrics, we want to be able to see all of those lyrics. So if the lyrics don't fit the container of the text, then we want those lyrics font size to get smaller so that we can see all the lines. Okay? And the last one, let me go back to line 1 here. The last one is one that I like a lot. It's text up or down. So when you select text up or down, it's going to make the text as big as the container, period. So if I change this container size and make it taller, it's going to increase the size of the text. So it's going to adjust the size of the text based on the container. I use this for our countdown. So if this is like, instead of line 1, let's say this is 5 minutes. I would take this and drag it down here to the corner and then just resize it to get it to the size that I want it. Okay, that's text up or down. Really good. Okay, so I do want to set this back up. I'm going to get rid of my blue border and I'll come back in here. I admit I don't remember what font was selected, but I'm going to choose the Impact because I think that's a good font size. And I'll put this in the center again. And then make sure I link this text to timer segment countdown. There you go. And I know it did have a background color. So fill color, I don't think it was that. I'll give it that. I don't know. And I did like the, I really like the stroke. I would put a black stroke on it. And shadow. That's kind of cool. All right, anyway, enough playing around. So that's how you edit a slide. So let's go back to show, and now we're talking about layers. So the next layer up is the announcements layer. Now the announcements layer, let's come up here and just start our rolling announcements. The announcements layer here is created, well, first of all, before I get there, notice that here is the announcements layer. And these slides are not on the announcements layer. They're on the media layer. So if I clear the media layer, you'll see that that slide's not shown until it goes to the next one. All right, so these are not on the announcements layer. To get slides to be on the announcement layer, you would come up here to this target. Right now it's currently set to presentation. So if I click on the target, we have two options: presentation layer, which puts it on the media, and announcements. So now I'm going to select announcements, and you'll see when I do that, this button becomes green. And now I'll clear everything and start it again, and you'll see now these slides are on the announcements layer. Okay? So that's the announcements layer. And notice the announcements layer is covering the media layer and the slide layer. So if I come down here and select this slide, it's being shown, but you can't see it because the announcements layer is covering it. Right? If I clear the announcements layer, now you can see the timer. Okay, and I've got milliseconds showing there, but whatever. All right, so the announcements layer will cover up layers below it. So you want to be careful that, again, as I said, there's no point in showing media if the announcements layer is running. Okay, except, and this is a more advanced topic, and I will create a video on it, when we want to be in rehearsal mode, where the announcements are going out to the live stream, but in the sanctuary, we want to be able to run actual slides up on the screens. Then we use the announcements layer and the media layer at the same time. But we'll get there. Okay? So that's the announcements layer, created by clicking on this target up here and selecting announcements. Okay? How do we get these rolling announcements? How do we go from slide to slide? There are a couple ways to do it. The way that we used to do it is to right-click on a slide and select Go to Next Timer. So you can select Go to Next Timer and then choose the duration, in this case 5 seconds. And then you want to check this loop to the beginning so that when it gets to the last slide, it would go to the beginning. Okay? That's one way to do it. I don't recommend doing it this way anymore because there's a much simpler way. The way that they are doing it here is by going to the slideshow. If you create a slideshow, it's automatically going to select all the slides. So all the slides will be part of the slideshow. And when it gets to the last slide, it will return to the first slide. Okay, so to create the slideshow, you just click on this, select the timer you want. Now at Highway, our timer is 8 seconds. So we would come down here to Custom, make this 8. click OK, and now when I reselect it, it'll take 8 seconds between each slide. So that's the way you would create rolling announcements. Okay, so that's the announcements layer. The next layer up is props. So props, remember, props are used, we use them at Highway anyway, to show a graphic on a center screen whenever we have something on the outside screens, like the video announcements. So props are down here. And one thing that ProPresenter has added is now you can create a collection of props. So you can group your props together. Let's say you have a group of Christmas props. You could create a new collection. So I would click the plus sign here, call it Christmas, and now you've got two. You've got the default collection and your Christmas collection. So I'll leave it on Christmas, and now we'll add a prop. So let's say we want to add a new graphic. So remember, a prop is what's on the center screen. To add a prop, you would come down here and click Add Prop. Another way to add a prop is to go up here to this 3 dots and go to the Props Editor. And when you do that, it's going to give you a list of all the props. And you can create new ones here. Okay? But I'm going to go back to the show so we can do it this way. So let me delete that and just do it again. So we're going to add a prop. We will call it Christmas 1, maybe? I don't know. Because this is now a group of Christmas props. So we'll call it the Christmas 1. I'm very creative, I know. All right, so let's add the graphic to this prop. To do that, there are a couple ways you can do it. You could take a graphic from your file system, drag and drop it onto here, and that would create the prop. But we're going to go into the editor. So you can go in, you've seen the other way. You can go into editor here by clicking on this pencil, or you can come up here to more and go to props editor. Either way. So I'll click here. Now it's called Christmas 1, so we want to add a graphic. There's our toolbar again, same as before, but now it's for props. So how do I add a graphic? Right here. Insert media. Click on this. It's going to take me out to my file system. Now I want to go to the folder where my training material is. And in there you will find a folder called props. And inside here we have a couple that we can choose. I'm going to select this Christmas one since I'm recording this video just a couple weeks before Christmas. So I'm going to select the Christmas, click OK. And there it is. It brings it in full screen. Let's create another prop. So actually I don't want to be part of the Christmas collection. I want this to be part of another one. So we'll create a new one. We'll select the default collection, click the plus sign, and let's call this one Fall 1 to be consistent, I guess. Okay. The default size is 1920 by 1080, and I'll show you how to change this. You want to actually select the screen that it's going to go to so that it's the proper size. But anyway, so that's that. And then we're just going to add the graphic again, and this time we'll add our fall one. All right, so now back to show. And you can see in my Christmas collection I have this Christmas prop, and in my default collection I have the fall prop. All right, back to Christmas. So to add a prop to a slide, it's just a matter of dragging and dropping onto the slide. And when you do that, it's going to say, okay, which prop do you want to add? Trigger means go ahead and start that prop. And then auto clear, this is something new, so that you can have this automatically go away after a certain amount of time. So let's say that instead of the center screen like we use our props for, let's say that you're creating a prop for a title slide. Pastor Gary Gray, lead pastor, comes across the screen, you might say after 15 seconds, have it go away. Okay, so that's what you can do. We'll say never here just so that it's always there. So when I click this slide, notice now I see the prop because the props layer is above the media layer. Okay, so the prop is going to show and not the media. If I clear the prop, then we'll see that media. Okay, you can also show a prop at any time by clicking on the prop itself. So if I come back here to my default collection, click on this fall one, it's going to show the fall prop. Okay, so you can show a prop anytime just by clicking on the prop itself. All right, so that's the props layer. Clear. And I'll go back to my, well, let's just go back to this slide. Oh, I want to clear this prop. So how do we clear? I added it by dragging and dropping. To clear it, you need to right-click on the slide, remove actions, and prop. So now when I click on it, oh, let me clear it. When I click on it, it will not show the props layer because there's no prop selected. Okay, the last layer that we're going to talk about that's visible to people is the messages layer, and that's down here. This is a paper airplane, I think. It reminds me of, passing notes in school. You make a paper airplane and send that message to someone else. That's what I think their intent was, but I could be wrong. So notice that the messages layer is at the very top. So because it's at the very top, it doesn't matter what else is showing, the message will show on the screen. So let's create one. We are going to click this Add Message. So make sure the Message tab is selected. Click Add Message. And you can see it says New Message. We'll call it we'll say Go to Room. Well, it's just the name of the message. So in the message detail, this is your actual message. What do you want to say? Let's say we want to say, Joe Smith, please go to the nursery to change a dirty diaper, right? I don't know. Okay, so that's our message. Down here you can pick a theme. We haven't talked about themes yet, but we will in a future slide. The one when we get to our audience looks. We'll talk about themes. Anyway, we're just going to choose this default theme. Dismiss manually means that it won't automatically go away after 30 seconds. You have to show it and hide it manually. Okay? So there's my message. So if I click show now, it's going to be small. Let me make this bigger so you can see it. Now, it's not much better, but it does say, Joe Smith, please go to the nursery. And then you can hide it. But there are other options. Let's say you want to make this dynamic so that no matter what the name is, you can use this same message. Instead of Joe Smith, we're going to add a token. Now, you can create your own tokens. Let's say you want to call this board member instead of the actual name. You could hit the enter key and it'll put board member up here. And then I can drag this over here to the beginning. And then down here under board member, you could just put the name of the board member. Mark Pecchia. And then when I show this, it's going to show Mark Pecchia, please go to the nursery. Okay? So that's what a token is. It lets you dynamically add whatever text you want to show. All right? So maybe board member wasn't a good example. I'll get rid of it. Delete that. There are some default ones that come in here: name, message, room. So you could say name, and then instead of nursery, you could select room. Drag this in front of the period. Please go to room something. So then down here you would put the name, Mark. Please go to room youth. I don't know. And then when I show that, that's what it would say. Mark, please go to room youth. Okay? So that's what the messages are. Now we're going to use messages a little differently in the video where I talk about the countdown, because we do use messages for our countdown. All right, so enough of that. I'm just going to delete this message. And that's it for layers. Okay, so layers are important. You need to understand which layers are on top of which other layers. And, you know, as I've said, it's important to make sure that when you're adding content to a screen, that you're not showing content that's hidden. Okay, you're just wasting computer resources when you do that, and it'll slow down ProPresenter. Okay. All right, well, I hope you learned something. I hope this video was helpful. And in the next video, we're going to talk about screens. One of my favorite topics, setting up screens. We'll actually go through the process of setting up all of the screens that we use at Highway, including the back screen and the three screens in the sanctuary and the live stream screen. Okay, so I look forward to seeing you there. Take care.